Wait, hold on.
To a specific
Zodiac Cape?
element, meaning you'll be healed from that damage and not harmed. This means while the main storyline can be completed by just focusing on really high...
I had times where I did an AoE and it healed the enemy, and I was like, oh, okay, so I should not use shadow magic against this. I never had a time where enemies AoE'd my team and one of my team members got healed.
In defense, the optional hidden side bosses need more situational setups with elemental absorption or status resistance. In fact, finding specific secret helmets toward the end of the game and then using them in New Game Plus is the strategy to beat a boss that you're not meant to be able to beat and unlock a hidden ending. We fight through this canyon back to the overworld and it is dark. It's the same landmass but clearly a different time period. You'll notice the little box in the corner simply shows a question mark, and these update in every time period when you learn where you actually are by talking to an NPC. So we ask around the local village about the Millennial Fair and we're told, why would we celebrate the Millennium? It's the year 600 AD. And then another NPC asks if we're going to fight Magus and his monster army. So now we know where we are and what's going on. I swing by a shop and browse the weapons and here's another issue. The shop layout is mostly fine. I like how when you scroll to an item it shows which character can use it by having their avatar do a little animation. However, here's the issue. You can see a character's current attack and defense displayed under them in white. If a shop item is worse than your current equipment but you can equip it, that number will be grayed out, showing there's no point buying it. But if it's a better item than your current equipment, the number will be shown in bright blue. But there is no way to see what your current number is compared to the blue while it's showing the blue number. So if it shows blue 100, you don't know if you're going from 50 to 100 or 99 to 100.
Another thing that was annoying is this screen is pretty good. You didn't have access to this screen when you were outside of the shop. So if you weren't at the shop and you got an item and you wanted to see who it was an upgrade for, you couldn't get to this nice screen where it compares it instantly to your entire team. You had to find a shop or just compare it one by one to every person.
100 you can't see at a glance. The only way to see is to select a different item that character can't use and just remember the base number again. This is, however, a very minor shop.
If spoilers would have been allowed, you could have equipped armor that absorbs water elements on that boss you were fighting to absorb the AoE attack. One, I had no way of knowing that AoE attack was water. Two, I had no way of knowing that it could be absorbed by that armor. Three, I didn't know that armor existed. That would have been really far into basically just looking up a guide territory.
UI issue, not a gameplay issue. Local chatter tells us that the missing Queen Lean has been found in the mountains that we've just come from, and if we wander south, Xenon Bridge is destroyed in this time period, and the local soldiers are holding fast against Magus's monster army. They're wishing that Sir Cyrus, a renowned knight, was with them. This is a lovely way of hemming the player into a smaller, more focused world using an in-universe story beat, not just an invisible wall. In the local bar, we meet this wandering adventurer, a guy called Toma. He will be relevant later, and he tells us that the last he heard, the kidnapped queen was spotted in the cathedral to the west, but it's okay, she was actually found in the mountains to the east where we came from. Having a sneaking suspicion that the person they rescued from the forest might not be the actual queen, we fight through the forest toward the royal castle. And while here we see a bush rustling, so we investigate and get an item from it. But then there's another rustling bush, and I think, ooh, another item. But nope, this one is enemies, which is a great early way to tell players, investigate everything, but be prepared to find risk and reward in equal measure. This route is blocked off by a mysterious box with an ancient sigil on it. This will matter, remember this. Arrive at the castle and these soldiers rush us, but the queen arrives and says, we are...
Yeah, I did... after we finally got the ability to open those boxes, we did go back and open a couple, but I couldn't find all the ones that I had found over the course of the game.
Her friend. In fact, we are the guy who rescued her. The king even thanks us for finding the...
If you bring up the menu, you can access equipment to put on, take off without having to go to a merchant. Right, but I'm saying that very nice screen that shows the comparison of the equipment to your entire team all at once was only at the merchant window. Another thing that was kind of annoying is like if you were at the merchant window and you hit sell and you went like down, 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 okay, sell the 10th item, and then it would go back to the sell screen at the top. So if you wanted to sell your 10th, 11th, and 12th item on the list, you'd have to go down, 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 sell. Down, 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 sell. It was like using a rotary phone. So that was another little irritation.
Queen, but then confides in us that he's still a bit concerned because the queen doesn't seem like herself. She doesn't have her favourite coral hairpin, and she never loses that. So we visit the queen in her chambers, and it's not Queen Lean, it's Marl from our time. She just looks exactly like the queen from 600 AD. But while we're talking, she suddenly screams and then ceases to exist. Now, there's no way that we're going to be able to explain this to the king, so we run, and on the way back we bump into Luca, who's followed us through the portal. Luca then explains her theory and knows where she recognises Marl from. Marl's real name is Nadia, and she's the current princess in our time. According to the history books, in 600 AD, Queen Lean was indeed kidnapped, but then she was saved. However, in this timeline, they saved Marl, meaning the real queen is still kidnapped, which has changed history. And with the real Queen Lean still missing, Marl was never actually born. This is shown by a nice family timeline visual. This means we need to go and save the real Queen Lean to fix the timeline and restore Marl's existence. Our only clue from the wandering adventurer Toma is the abbey to the west. So Luca joins us and we set off. Now Luca in the party brings an exciting new mechanic. We can now see the enemy's health. And this is thanks to the accessory Sight Scope that Luca comes equipped with. Now there aren't many RPGs where seeing an enemy's current or total health
which was nice, except it didn't work on many bosses. So it was pointless half the time. Also, taking up an accessory slot for that is pretty major.
It's a tactical decision you need to make, but Chrono Trigger forces you to make that choice between information or using the accessory slot for, say, a power-increasing item. Now, at first, this lack of standard RPG information was jarring, but most normal enemies will go down in 2 or 3 hits, provided they're not resistant to physical damage, and bosses are more about finding the correct rhythm of damaging and healing. It's testament to the pacing of the fights that not knowing the enemy's health isn't actually a major downside, because even in group fights, you're never fighting more than 6 enemies at once, and keeping track of who you've attacked is actually quite easy because the fights are quite short. We've been playing the game for a while, so let's save. You can save the game at any point while on the overworld, and for saving in a gameplay area, you'll need to find these little sparkles. And when you save the game, the story chapter, in this case, The Queen is Gone, is shown to the top, and this will matter for finding hidden endings later. We have a nap in the inn to restore our health, and notice another lovely detail which really makes the world feel real beyond your characters. After you wake up in the inn, if you just wait around for a while, an NPC comes in and makes the beds. So we journey on. The cathedral to the west is full of creepy nuns.
I can't believe he in his playthrough, he waited just to see if that would happen.
And one of my favorite video game lines, all we want is world peace, or a piece of the world. We find the queen's hairpin on the floor in this cathedral, and the nuns transform into the monstrous Naga. And I love the inclusion of the hairpin because it's a trail of breadcrumbs which constantly reassures you, yes, you're on the right path, but through in-universe narrative connections. We fight through and unlock our first dual tech, Flame Toss, combining Luca's fire and Chrono's cyclone. And the fight ends, but Luca is ambushed by an unseen Naga, and just before she's killed, she's saved by a frog with a sword, who chastises Luca with "Lower thine guard, and thou art allowing the enemy in." And that is a great character intro. Instantly, we know this frog's personality. Good guy, fantasy knight. It seems the frog is also searching for the queen, so we agree to team up, although Luca isn't too happy about this. Playing the organ unlocks a secret door, and we discover that Frog is a fantastic fighter, stronger than both Chrono and Luca, and with a healing spell, fights are now a lot easier. But in a great touch, you can also access healing technical abilities from the menu outside of battle and use them to heal the party. So we fight into the evil cathedral and discover a shrine to the great and powerful Magus, leader of the monster army. Frog and Chrono's dual tech crosscut makes short work of anything.
I had to do 2 or 3 laps of this place to find, there was like 2 little buttons on the wall, and I thought they were just decorations. And I had to do a few laps this place before I found them.
And then this lovely bit. You walk down some stairs, but they flip into a ramp trap and you slide down, and then an enemy enters the screen by sliding down a banister into the fight. Now, you could have easily just had the enemy fade in or jump in from off-screen with a general all-purpose animation, but no, they said, right, how can we make this enemy's entrance catered to this specific encounter? And then I realized they've done this a lot. Almost every encounter has enemies jump in from cliffs, roll down hills, or fly around trees, and the beauty of having the fights happen in the same screen that you're adventuring through means you can tailor each encounter to respect the visuals of that specific screen. And it makes every fight feel like it belongs there, in that exact place. It could only work in that place, which again makes you feel like you're battling through a world, not just journeying through a world being interrupted by battles. Small touch again, if an enemy dies after you've targeted them with an attack, but before the attack has happened, you don't lose the attack, it just gets reassigned to another enemy. This can, however, be an issue later when you want to target specific enemies with certain elements and absolutely avoid certain enemies with certain other elements, lest you accidentally heal the enemy. You'll notice an interesting mechanic here too. An enemy punches and then repositions Frog. Now, during fights, there's no way to reposition your characters manually, and normally this isn't a problem because regular attacks can be aimed anywhere, and dual and tri-techs don't care where your characters are. However, in very rare cases, techs which originate from a character in a straight line or an area around that character will be affected by you being repositioned. And it's a definite tactical limitation that only the...
That was something I touched on at one point, is the enemy, like, you couldn't choose where your people were standing, and the enemy would occasionally do, like, let's say an area of effect spell that would hit multiple members of your party, so they could punish you for being in bad spots, but you couldn't move your characters. So it's like, if your characters were like in a line and a laser comes through and pierces all of them, you're punished for standing in a line, but you couldn't not stand in a line because you had no control over that.
Enemy can reposition the player characters. Find the kidnapped Lean and she knows Frog, but then the kidnapper appears. It's the Royal Chancellor, but they're actually a shape-shifting Yakra. And this boss has a triple hit attack, but it only uses it in retaliation to being hit. So you're encouraged to use your dual techs, because then you're doing big damage and only taking 1 retaliation instead of doing small damage and taking lots of retaliation. This combat principle will be essential when later bosses have massive retaliation damage. Kill the Yakra, save the Queen, and open this chest containing the actual real Chancellor. But interesting note, you can just not open this chest and change the future in a small but tragic way. The Chancellor says they must create a criminal justice system to deal with these kind of things in the future, and this will come back to haunt us pretty soon. And the Frog, while thankful the Queen is safe, leaves, ashamed of his failure to protect her. Back in the Queen's room, Aunt Marl, or Princess Nadia, exists again, and she explains that she hides her royal heritage because she wants to adventure and explore, and people treat her differently when they know that she's royalty. Her only real desire is to be respected for what she achieves and not who she has been born as socially, especially when the royal family and advisors don't pay any attention to her as a person, just seeing her as a position of state. So we return to teleport back to our time by going back to the original portal. Marl makes sure to tell the current King and Queen to get on really well, otherwise she won't exist. The Frog makes one more appearance, wishing us well and hoping we meet again sometime, and then back at the time portal, Luca explains they're actually called gates and connect one specific moment and place in time to another. And she's managed to condense her teleport machine down and make a gate key, which will let us activate them freely. Back in 1000 AD, Marl invites us to the castle to celebrate, but when we arrive, the current Chancellor is convinced that we have kidnapped the princess. And despite Marl's explanation and then screams of protest, she's completely ignored, which kind of justifies and explains her personality so far. And then we are put on trial for kidnapping the princess. And this scene is lovely. Also, note the beautiful stained glass...
Lovely? No, dude, this scene was so stupid. But she's like, he didn't kidnap me. And they're just like, nope, you're under arrest. He didn't kidnap me. Death penalty. guilty.
In the background, because that will matter later. This trial is about establishing the character of Chrono as either a good or bad person, and then setting a sentence for the kidnapping of the princess. Now, the character of Chrono is judged on your past actions, mostly the order of the things you did in the Millennial Fair. Did you save the cat for the little girl? If yes, she'll come and vouch that you're a good person. Did you eat the old man's lunch? If yes, he'll come and vouch that you're not a good person.
I didn't see either of those options.
But most importantly, when you bumped into Marl, did you check on her or go and pick up the pendant first? This trial section is lovely because it really establishes that your actions, however minor you may feel they are, have weight within the game world, and your impact on other people is now coming back to help or hinder you. Many RPGs have the protagonists almost feel like post-human avatars, simply acting out an adventure with the world and the NPCs of the world, acting as a divorced backdrop, never having any real connection to your actions. But judging Chrono based on his treatment of the world and those in it this early on drives home the point of, hey, other people live here too. Your actions affect them, and they will come back to haunt you. No matter what you do here, the outcome is ultimately the same. If you've done everything right, you'll be sentenced to 3 days in jail. However, the Chancellor will arrive and override this choice and say that you're now being executed in 3 days. Unfortunately, the royal rules prevent Marl from appealing this, so we need to try and escape. There are 2 ways to escape jail. You can genuinely just sit there and do nothing for 3 in-game days, which takes about 3 real-world minutes, where Luca will bust in and save you. Or you can knock on the gate until an annoyed guard opens it to hit you, and then rush out while it's open, and then fight your way through the castle. And there are lots of small choices like this in the game. But for this playthrough, I'll be taking the intended complete path so I can see everything.
Again, really weird that you were in jail and you had your sword still.
New mechanic. These shield enemies are resistant to physical damage until they peek out, so you have to wait for them to look and then attack. Another example of how the battle system is about timing and tactics and less about brute force. Up the steps and along this bridge, and this is something I have to praise Chrono Trigger for. They managed to successfully replicate a lot of camera angles and perspectives using the same sprites and the same movement mechanics. You've got the top-down map for top-down general gameplay, but then forward-facing for time travel, horizontal for this bridge, and later sideways cinematic for a bike race or even climbing up a mountain, and then above the planet itself. Even this castle escape has you climbing up the outside of a building and sneaking through dimly lit corridors, using stealth to knock out this guard by sneaking up when they're not looking, but if you do get spotted, you just fight them normally, which is what stealth should be. We then save this guy called Fritz from the execution room, and he tells us they run a shop in town, come and see them for a reward.
The stealth thing was so weird because it was like you didn't get any XP. You got an item, like you'd get loot, but you wouldn't get XP, so it felt like you were punished for doing stealth well.
By now, Luca will have shown up to join you, and you'll find a document about a prototype dragon tank, which explains it's immune to fire and lightning damage, but the head is remarkably weak. This is another thing Chrono Trigger does often and very well. By reading notes or talking to NPCs, you'll gather mechanical information for upcoming bosses or puzzles. The game wants you to succeed, and it's left
Mukluk dance in Mukluk bobble.
Hey, Kit Matt, thank you, appreciate that. Maybe Muck can win that last fight, but that wasn't the last fight, by using the right tactic and attack the boss in the right moment. The end boss fight, the problem was she would do a AoE that reduces everybody's health to 1, and then she was so fast that she would take another turn before it was my turn, and then she would kill people. That was the main issue.
Information lying around to support that success. Continue the escape and then meet the dragon tank. As the note said, it's immune to electrical damage, so normal attacks only, but the tank is made up of 3 parts: head, body, and wheels. The head heals the rest, so it has to die first. But now, more tactics. The wheels store energy, and if not dealt with, they will unleash that energy as a ramming attack. To disrupt the storage of energy, just attack the wheels after you've been told the wheels store energy. And when you win, there's a cool killing blow animation where Chrono jumps onto and destroys the tank. We continue the escape, and we're told to break through the guards, and this means run into them and push the NPCs back. And this is one of the few times in the game that you get the pushing past a crowd mechanic. We're cornered in the castle, and the Chancellor returns with guards, but Princess Nadia, who I'll just call Marl from now on, argues on our behalf again. Unfortunately, the Chancellor and her father, the King, both ignore her, so she decides to reject her royal life and escape with us. So we flee to the forest, pursued by guards, and eventually get trapped in this small clearing. The only way out is another time gate, so we dive in and we are thrown through into a rusted metal room with a sealed sigil door to the north, and outside, a desolate, destroyed, modern cityscape. Now, the time gate is still active in this room, so we could go back to our time, but...
Zil 2.0, I think you have wanted to start with the right hand, not the left. You painfully saw, but I haven't gotten to my replay. So on the first attempt I did on that boss, Dale, I hit the hand on our right, and it did like 5 damage. So I'm like, okay, that's not it. Then I hit the hand on the left, and I did like 5 damage, but got countered. And I'm like, okay. And then I hit the head, and I did 300. I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to hit the face. So I just stopped hitting the hands after that, other than when someone in chat challenged me to try again, and it was painful. Did you beat the game? No, I did not.
But the Chancellor will be waiting there to send us to jail, and then that's execution again. So this isn't ideal, but this place, wherever we are, is better than instant death. We explore the sci-fi domes dotted around the landscape and meet hungry, rag-wearing human survivors. Everyone is begging for food, and we're shown the Enotron, a health and mana refill station, but in a lovely thematic touch, the game reminds you that you are still hungry. So staying here with no food would also mean death. The people of the dome tell of another dome to the north with rumors of food, so with that as our only goal, we set off. Journeying through Lab 16 has us pass through broken down cars and traffic lights, and you've also got these fast-moving rat enemies which will steal tonics, your HP item, if they bump into you. Regular enemies now also have healers with within combat shown by these plant things, and I like how the dragon boss introduced the player to the idea of enemies heal, so kill the healing thing first, and now regular fights also have healers. Beautifully smooth way to introduce and then standardize a combat mechanic. I also like the small graphical touch of Marl's attack. She uses a crossbow and shoots if the enemy is far away, but if the enemy is close enough, she'll just run up to them and smack them. You didn't...
The enemies might have been vulnerable to magic? Maybe, but Magus's magic hits the whole screen, which means it would have gotten the... Well, no, sorry. If he uses the Dark Sphere, it's a radial. But if he uses any of the other spells he has, it hits the whole screen, which then it would have gotten counter.
Need to attack animations based on sprite distance, but they have to, and I appreciate that. Attack animation differences also goes a little deeper. You can always tell when a character is about to score a critical hit because they will approach the enemy differently. If you tell Chrono to attack, he'll just run up and slash the enemy, but on a critical hit, he won't run, he will leap at them. Meaning there's this lovely brief moment where the animation lets you know you're about to hit critical damage before the satisfyingly large number pops up. We also get our first touch of elemental tactics. These goo enemies are resistant to all non-elemental attacks, so Luca needs to handle them with the flame toss. Leaving Lab 16, we arrive in Aris Dome, and the people inside are amazed that we've crossed the ruins. We're told by the Elder there is food stored below, but it's guarded by a robot defense sentry, and no one is strong enough to fight past it. We're also told some guru guy lives on Death Peak, but that's not our concern right now. We head into the dome basement to try and get the food, and the computer needs a password, so we go looking for clues. The search for the password leads us over these beams and this lovely use of parallax scrolling when the background moves quicker than the foreground, implying the depth of this dome. Guarding the food room is indeed a massive robot, the Guardian, flanked by 2 support bits. Now, if you hit the main body while both bits are alive, it will retaliate with a powerful delta wave tri-attack. And if there's one bit left when you attack the main body, it will amplify its attack against a single character. So you need to take out both bits and then damage the main body, but when they're both dead, the body will begin a countdown from 5 to 0, and then the bits will respawn. This is a combat design the game uses repeatedly to great effect, putting the boss into a vulnerable state, capitalizing on that brief moment of vulnerability, and then setting up that moment again. Because you also need to decide how much time of that moment of vulnerability to dedicate to healing your own party. With the boss down, we reach the food storage, and it's rotten. It has been for ages. There's also a dead body with a note saying, "Catch the rat, it knows the password." This body is also clutching something tightly, a single seed, the potential to regrow food, so we take it. It's not much, but it's all we have. We sprint along the beams and catch the rat, and it tells us to open the door, hold L and R, and then press A, and this is the first time the game breaks the fourth wall. The instructions refer to the SNES controller's buttons itself. Hold both shoulder buttons and press A. Now, Chrono Trigger will break the fourth wall a few times, giving instructions which refer to the controller you're using itself, and thankfully, they've kept this reality break thematic and only use it in the sci-fi time period and only to activate machines. So this makes some level of sense. You are literally putting a code into a machine. Unfortunately, these passwords do cause major issues when you're playing on an emulator and using a keyboard, because a keyboard won't accept 3 keys being pressed at the same time, so you'll need to rebind both L and R to a single keystroke in the emulator settings. And there's another password issue we'll see later in the factory. We put the password in, fight through more enemies, and find the main PC. Luca manages to figure out the system, and we watch a small video telling us we are in the year 2400. She also finds a note about a time portal in Proto-Dome to the east. Marl then presses a random button, because that's just who Marl is, and accidentally opens up a visual recording from the year 1999 titled The Day of Lavos. And we learn how the world came to be in this state, how the world ended. A massive creature erupts from inside the planet, spewing molten rock everywhere, destroying all life, reducing the world to this charred husk. With this revelation, Marl panics and Luca remains calm. The Day of Lavos, the Armageddon, happens in 1999. So her plan is to return to our time, 1000 AD, and figure out how to stop the Day of Lavos 999 years before it happens. We return to the main dome and give the seed to the...
That's the part where she said, "Let's do this," and I was like, "No," and then you got forced to anyway.
survivors. Marl gives an impassioned speech about not giving up, and the Elder gives us a key for his old speeder bike, saying if we're going east to the other dome, we'll need to cross Lab 32. And Lab 32 is another mutant-infested stronghold, but eventually we find the jet bike and meet the man. This is Johnny, half man, half bike, all celebrity machine racer. Johnny challenges us to a race through the ruins, and here's another issue I have with Chrono Trigger. The race itself is a single-use mechanic. You move horizontally across the screen. You and Johnny will constantly swap places, almost as if you're connected by a rubber band. You can crash into each other to block the bounce, or use one of 3 temporary speed boosts to pull ahead. All that really matters is you cross the finish line first, and this just means use a single speed boost before the end, and you'll win.
Thank you.
Pretty much guaranteed, but what's my problem? Well, you're heading to the East Dome. On the world map, that means moving left to right, west to east. Even on the map, when you meet Johnny, you are exiting the right-hand side of the map, implying you are moving to the right. But when the race starts, you are moving from right to left, which is switching screen direction, and it's super jarring. And this is the first moment the journey of the game has not felt smooth. Win the race, find the Proto-Dome, and inside there's a broken robot sentry, so Luca...
I don't really care about that, because you could just say the camera is on the other side. Like, if you're moving left to right, the camera's facing north. If you're moving right to left, you could still be going east, but the camera's just pointed south. But... yeah, the whole race with Johnny felt completely pointless because you just wait to the last second, then press boost.
Fixes it up, and we meet R-66Y. He doesn't remember much, but he's happy to be called Robo. Unfortunately, Aris Dome is locked, and the unlock mechanism is in the factory to the north. Now, Robo tells us he can unlock this, but someone needs to stay here, so the moment it's unlocked, the switch can be activated, and the door will actually be opened. I choose to have Luca stay behind as Marl has the healing spell. Robo joins our party and is an absolute tank. He can absorb a load of damage, and his dual tech Aura Beam is a party-wide heal. And then we fight some acid and alkaline enemies who, if allowed to fuse together, hit you for massive damage, which I like. It is, however, here I notice an issue with the combat system, and it's only a single frame. After selecting a tech and...
Saying that his dual tech is a party-wide heal is kind of silly because you already had a party-wide heal dual tech right there.
Confirming which enemy you want to use it on while in wait mode, or after an enemy retaliates, or after 2 enemies take their turn in immediate succession. There is a single active gameplay frame before the next input happens. And sometimes this single frame is enough to allow an enemy to move out of alignment from an area tech or disrupt the lineup of a linear tech. It's extremely rare you'll come across this because it is only a frame, but if you wait for the enemies to move into a group, then select an AoE tech, and after the selection but before the tech animation starts, there is a non-zero chance of at least one enemy in that group moving out of the area of effect. It's much easier to see this effect with fast-moving enemies like the ones on screen now, and it means taking your time and lining things up doesn't always go in the exact way that the game has told you it will go. Arrive at the factory and get told, unfortunately, its 2 is locked with the passcode Zabi. So we begin an adventure to decode what that means. This means fighting over conveyor belts and even through some conveyor rooms, essentially a combat
Zabi.
endurance test as it's 3 battles in a row. Then we activate this crane to move some barrels and find the code Zabi.
I don't remember any of this.
Means X-A-B-Y, which would phonetically be pronounced Zabi, and it also refers to the buttons on the SNES controller. Now this seems really clever, and it is, provided you're playing on a SNES, but when they released this on Steam, they didn't change this bit. You're still told the code is Zabi, despite the fact you may be using a keyboard and not realize this refers to controller buttons, not the keys X-A-B-Y, or a non-SNES controller with X-A-B-Y being in different positions, notably the Xbox controller. And this oversight when localizing the game from SNES to anything else has caused no end of people to take to the forums and complain about being stuck in the factory. Put the X-A-B-Y code in and unlock the original door and send the factory into a haywire panic.
I guess I just guessed the code there. I guess I just guessed the code. It was like,
We
okay.
need to leave quickly. However, on the way out, we bump into Robo's old friends. Unfortunately, they see him as defective, and instead of helping, they throw him to the floor and smash him to bits. And if you try and run in to help, you are pushed back, and Robo himself even says, "Don't attack, they're my friends." And this is quite an emotional bit, and eventually, the mangled Robo is thrown down a trash chute, and we are left to fight the defense bots. I really like how the defense bots dual tech has them pick up your character.
I like it, and I said this before, but don't attack, they're my friends. So we wait till they murder our friend, then we attack.
An aerial bounce you through the screen for juggle damage. After surviving the ambush, we find Robo's battered body and drag him back through the overworld to Luca, who fixes him up. And Luca asks what Robo's plans are for the future. Now, he has nothing to do here, and he doesn't know what to say, simply replying, "No one ever asked me that." Unsure of what to do and realizing there's not much for him to do here anymore, he joins us, hoping that by helping to stop Lavos, he might find a purpose that he can feel proud of. So all 4 of us pile into the new time gate and see where we end up, but instead of ending up anywhere, we arrive in a black void. Pillars of light showing various time gates on the left, and then a central solitary cobbled street floating in nothingness, with an old man casually leaning under a lamp. This is the end of time. Whenever 4 people enter a portal together, they get sent to the end of time. This is narrative justification for the 3-person party size, which is fine. The old man tells us we can use the Pillars of Light to travel through time to various unlocked time periods, but whatever we do, do not use the portal contained in the bucket just to the north of him, because that bucket goes to 1999, the day of Lavos. And here is a fascinating gameplay choice. You can now attempt to fight Lavos whenever you like from now on, and the ending
See, that's what happened. I interacted with it, and he went, hey, just like that. And I was like, oh, you can't actually use this, and I didn't try again.
in Chrono Trigger will depend on how much other stuff you've done, from minor changes like side characters being dead or alive to major changes like who rules the world. Chrono Trigger's 14 different endings start here, and you can access the first 2 right now. Just take the bucket teleport and lose. You'll see the day of Lavos happens, an extended cut of the magma rain, and a 3D map hosted in the Sci-fi Dome showing all the damaged and destroyed cities, along with the message, the future refused to change. This is the bad ending, and if you do somehow kill Lavos in the first fight, which you're not meant to be able to do, you'll get credits and a few monster sprites just hanging out. This is the Good Night Dream ending. As we play through the story, I'll note every point where killing Lavos at that exact moment would change the ending. The end of time also contains the door to Specchio, the Master of War, and Specchio will look different depending on your level, and as you level up, they look more powerful. Defeating Specchio in a fight unlocks the ability to use magic, and you need to defeat Specchio with every character you want to unlock magic for. They're not that hard to beat. For now, we need to go back to 1000 AD and research Lavos, and we can't go to the forest.
No, you don't. I just literally talked to him, and he's just like, presto changeo, here's your magico. That's it.
The Chancellor is waiting to imprison us, but thankfully there is another portal in this beam of light which lands us inside a closet in Medina Village. This is a village of monsters, or mystics as they are known, and they hate humans. They are worshipping a statue of Magus, talking about the war 400 years ago and mentioning how Magus created Lavos to use as a weapon against the humans. So there's a lead. There's also a magical glowy pyramid to the north, and we can't access this yet, but we'll come back later. And then we meet the great Ozzy, whose ancestors fought alongside Magus 400 years ago. Inside this house just south of the village, we find Melchior, a weaponsmith. He will be very important later. Journeying back to the human village takes us through the Hekran caves. Luca and Mal gain their dual fire ice tech, and then when Hekran, the ruler of these caves, dies, he laments that Magus, who brought forth Lavos, should have killed all humans 400 years ago. Jump into the whirlpool at the end of the Hekran caves and get spat back out in the human village, which is the only safe way to get back
here. You
here.
fought him the first time? Yeah, but Josh says you have to fight him for every character you want magic on, and I'm saying that's not true. I fought him once, and then I just brought every character and introduced them afterward.
Without being arrested by the Chancellor. This means we can go back to the fair and take the gate back to the end of time. And now a few new light pillars have appeared, with one of them taking us to 600 AD, 400 years ago. The Dark Ages hasn't changed too much because we've not done anything prior to this, and the locals talk about Magus's mystic army taking over Xenon Bridge to the south. There are, however, rumors that the legendary hero has reappeared, wielding the mythical massive...
Now see, here, I didn't know where to go. So I went to the dinosaur period of time, And I cleared that area out and no one would talk to me. And I was like, I guess I'm not supposed to be here. And then I ended up going to this time period afterwards.
Masamune sword and brandishing the hero medal, ready to defeat Magus. So we pop over to Xenon Bridge to the south, effectively hunting down Magus to kill him before he can summon Lavos, and these soldiers need rations. So we head to the castle kitchen, and the cook tells us to deliver the food and also tell his brother, the knight captain, to be careful. And I like how there are just family connections throughout the lands, but they're not essential story beats, they're just realistic connections that tie places together. We pass the food on to the soldiers, restore some morale, and then fight across the bridge, and we meet Ozzy, one of Magus's commanders. In fact, the grandfather of the guy that we met in the village back in 1000 AD. Ozzy raises the dead human soldiers as skeletons and then mashes them all together into Zombor, a boss with a top half and bottom half, each with different elemental resistances. With Xenon Bridge cleared, we can talk to the locals in the southern village. We meet Toma, the wandering adventurer, again and hear tales of the legendary Masamune sword. Only this sword can defeat Magus, and only the legendary hero can wield it. And there are a few more subplots that you can start here. Talking to Fiona in her villa lets you know that her partner is missing and she has a desire to defend the woodland. And I like how this soldier in the shop says he just bought some new armor and then immediately falls over. It's not a subplot, I just thought it was quite funny. Local rumors say the legendary hero has been seen in the cursed woods, so we venture in. New mechanic: the frog enemies have super high defense, but the snake enemies will eat the frog enemies to refill their own health, so hit the snakes and let them kill the frogs for you. Deep in the cursed woods, hidden behind a bush, we find a little hovel, and inside, it's the Frog Knight from earlier. However, he assures us he is not the legendary hero, and he does not have the hero medal or the Masamune or the ability to be a hero, so he asks us respectfully to leave him alone. More local rumors then say Magus himself has been seen in the Denadoro Mountains to the east, and at the top of the mountain, a legendary sword is also sealed in a cave. If that sword is the Masamune, it's likely that Magus is trying to get hold of it before it can be used against him, so we set off to find it. And as we arrive in the mountains, a kid in a makeshift cape runs past us screaming, chased by a goblin. So we finish the fight encounter and then fight our way up the mountain. Another nice touch here: some of the goblins have wooden hammers which massively increase their offensive and defensive capabilities, but if you use Luca's fire attack, you will burn the hammer away and make them far weaker. Not a mechanical touch, but I love this little rainbow graphic on the river, just thought it was a nice visual. And this will again matter, because remember I said every time something catches your eye, it will be relevant later? This exact map is needed later for a secret. The cliff top is 4 consecutive battles, so I hope you healed up, and then we fight onto the waterfall itself and fall down to access some new caves and paths. And I really like how they've built in vertical design to climb the mountain.
Remember
it's not just
falling
go
down a
up, it's go
waterfall.
up, fall down, go into a cave, go around, go up more, fall down more. Lots of variety. Now there's no signs of Magus, but we do eventually reach the cave at the top, and inside, a small child, the guardian of the Masamune sword itself.
So there was some secret stuff on the way to Masamune that I didn't find.
So we go to take the sword, but the kid is actually 2 kids who are ancient wind spirits called Masa and Mune. They agree to give us the sword on one condition: we beat them in a fight and prove that we are worthy. Now, a quick side note: many video games, mostly RPGs, have the Masamune sword. It's Sephiroth's sword in Final Fantasy VII, it's been in Castlevania, Soul Calibur, Secret of Mana, and many more. Now, Masamune is actually the name of a 13th century Japanese swordsmith, Goro Masamune, widely considered one of the greatest swordsmiths of all time. Several of his works can still be seen displayed in museums across Japan. Defeating the Masamune twins makes them...
Let's see. Oh, nice. Have you been enjoying the game? I just rage quit. I was 16 hours in. I just rage quit, and I'm looking at a review of the game. I want to see if they had the same issues that I had.
Say only Cirrus made it this far before, and we've heard of Cirrus before. They were mentioned by the knights on Xenon Bridge, so it's likely that Cirrus is the legendary hero. But where is he? The Masamune...
I got to a fight with the a queen, and so it was like 2 boss fights in a row, and if you die on the second one, you had to redo the first one also. So like, as you try things on the second fight and you're trying to learn how the fight works, if you die, you had to replay like 20 minutes. And I did like 3 attempts on it, and then I just got upset. She also has a skill where she reduces the party's health to 1 hit point, and then she takes another turn really fast and kills somebody.
Mune kids then fusion dance into a single entity, and we fight one more time, and this form stores up energy and then releases it. However, Chrono's slash tech, just like the Dragon Tank, dissipates the energy and keeps the team safe. When you win, you are gifted the Masamune. However, it's only the blade, and it's broken. With this in hand, we are whisked safely down the mountain by the wind spirits, and now we need to fix this sword and find the hero. Remember the kid who ran past us crying at the base of the mountain? Well, you can find him in his house. His name is Tata, and he's crying to his dad. Tata says he found the hero medal, so he just took it and wanted people to think he was the hero. His dad is also super annoyed that he's not the hero because his dad wanted to be...
That is not what happened. He found the hero medal. Other people saw him with it and thought he was the hero, and then he felt like he had to play the part. He did not just take it and say, I wanted to be the hero.
Known as the father of the famous hero. We asked Tata where he found this hero medal, and he says... a frog dropped it. There are some new endings available already. If you challenge Lavos before you visit the mountains and Tata runs past you screaming, you'll get the legendary hero ending, where Tata is fully convinced he's genuinely the hero and will try to take on Magus single-handedly. But in this alternate timeline, the part of the protagonist hero is played by Robo in the future, and Magus is replaced with Chrono, Mal, and Luca. But if you return to the frog and give him his medal back, unfortunately, he still doesn't believe anything can be done. He is not the hero. However, if you look around his house, you'll discover he does indeed have the broken hilt of the Masamune, and there's a name engraved on the hilt, Melchior. We know that name. That's the human weaponsmith from the Mystic Village in the year 1000 AD. So we return to that time via gate and go and see Melchior. He has no idea how we have found both parts of the Masamune, but says yes, he can fix the sword. However, he needs Dreamstone. an ancient red stone not seen in millions of years. Another new ending. If you challenge Lavos after giving Frog the hero medal, but before traveling to the past, you'll get the unknown past, showing prehistory and all of the events that you failed to change. With Melchior's need for ancient dreamstone, we can return to the end of time, and one of the pillars of light takes you to 65 million BC, so we travel to prehistory. Unfortunately, the landscape has changed, and so where we materialize is just in the air, and we fall down directly into a dinosaur ambush, but then we are saved by a fearless, savage girl. This is Ayla, and she respects strength, but her flaw is that she will charge blindly into battle even against impossible odds. She believes everything can be solved with enough power. Ayla is the chieftain of the local village, and so invites us over to celebrate us arriving. The overworld also looks a bit different, but the locals do...
Can you like the video? Yeah, absolutely. Hang on. That is it.
Tell us the chief owns a rare red stone. Brilliant. That's probably what we need. Before we talk negotiations, though, Ayla throws us a party with drinks and dancing and singing, and this is a lovely section. If you talk to Marl and Luca, they will wander around and enjoy the food. Marl even goes to do some dancing with the tribe. Ayla tells us that in this time period, all humans are at war with the reptites, giant sentient reptiles led by Azala. And we are currently in Ioka village, and they are all fighters, unlike the cowardly